Welcome back, anybody. For the past many years, I've been doing something wrong. Yeah, I know it's kind of hard to believe that it would be me. I find it hard to believe myself, and I know you don't believe it either, but it's true. And I'm going to show you what I've been doing wrong for, like I say, many years. When you see what I'm going to show you, you're going to probably say, well, yeah, that's kind of obvious. Anybody would know that and wouldn't run into this problem. But anyway, I realized this a couple days ago, and it's been bothering me, so that's why we're doing this video, so that I can pass on what I've learned to y'all. So the beginning of this whole thing started many years ago, and I noticed that quite often the last board that I cut, or the last board that was left on the bunks, always seemed to be thicker than all the ones I had cut before. And I figured it was just some kind of a misalignment or misadjustment or calibration or something of the mill, and it just wasn't working properly. Well, guess what, folks? That ain't the problem, and you're about to learn what the problem is. So hang on. Turn the key on here, and we're going to raise the head up a little bit. Right there. Okay, turn off the key. So there's the problem right there. And it should be, I'll even get closer. There's the problem, and it should be obvious to everybody what the problem is and what we can do to solve the problem. So here's what I have found that, again, should be obvious to everybody. And once I explain it, you're going to say, yep, makes perfect sense. Over here, we have the inch scale. That is something that you don't ever want to try to change other than to calibrate it to make sure that when you run your saw blade down across or through a log at this mark right here, that the piece of lumber that's left on the bunks is 2 inches thick. If you go down here to the 4-inch or the 6-inch or whatever, you want to make sure that when you're done making that cut, that what you've cut is that exact measurement. And that works out just fine. Except what I like to do is when I cut lumber for myself, I usually use strictly the inch scale over here, because if I use a 4/4 scale, the boards are actually too thick for me, since most 1x lumber that people work with is 3/4 of an inch thick nominally. If you cut a board that is over 1 inch thick, you've got to run it through your planer like 10 million times in order to get it down to 3/4 of an inch thick. So I like to run my lumber, my quote unquote 4/4 lumber, by going down to the inch marks, 7 inches, then down to 6, 5, 4, etc. And that works perfectly. You end up with a board that's approximately 7/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more thick. And that works out great until you get right here and you make that very last cut at 1 inch, and you have this board right here is 1 inch thick. The board above and above it and so on and so forth is about 7/8, give or take, inch thick. So you always end up with one board on the bunks that's thicker than it's supposed to be. So when I realized that's why all these last boards that I've milled seem to be a little bit fatter than the rest, that's why that's happening. So, mea culpa. So my plan from now on is when I'm cutting my 1 inch boards using the inch scale, I'm going to start at the 7/8 inch mark. And since I have simple set, I can set my saw blade height at something in 7/8, set the simple set to drop 1 inch with each cut, and then it's automatically going to go from, in this case, 7 7/8 to 6 7/8, 5 7/8, etc. And I'm done. You guys that have a manual mill, you're going to have to manually do one of two things. Remember that you're supposed to be going from the 7/8 mark down to the next 7/8 mark, or stick with the full 1 inch marks. And then when you get down here, you end up with your thick board, you make one additional wasted pass to cut off that extra 1/8 of an inch. So that takes care of what I've been doing wrong now for quite a few years. And if I was younger, I'd be embarrassed by that. But right now, I'm too old to worry about being embarrassed. So learn, grasshoppers, don't make the same mistake. Now, for the design flaw that Wood-Mizer has, I have a bad feeling it's going to be on every sawmill they make. And it's not really a design flaw on the mill, but on their quarter scale. What I just got done discussing, using the inch scale, you have the same situation when you use the quarter scale. If you look from this mark here, which as far as I'm concerned, should line up with the 0 mark. If you go to your 4/4 mark, it should be 1 1/8 inches, which again, this is off a little bit because this is off a little bit. But anyway, this is the last 4/4 mark is at 1 1/8. The last 5/4 is should be 1 3/8, and so on and so forth. Well, you run into the same situation where as you're cutting from way up here, 12 inches, 11 inches, etc., every time you drop down to your 4/4 mark, you're getting a board that is approximately just over 1 inch thick until you get to your last 4/4, last 5/4, 6, 8/4, whatever board. And that's going to be a full 1 1/8, 1 3/8, 1 5/8, etc. thick. So this board up here, the very last board on your bunk, is going to be wider, thicker, however you want to say it, than all the ones you've done before. Now, if I were Wood-Mizer, first of all, I'd be quite rich, but if I were Wood-Mizer, I would take this line right here and I would move it down the equivalent of 1 kerf width, which is just under 1/8 of an inch. And what I'm going to do to correct the problem is I'm going to take this roll pin that's supposed to, let me loosen this, take this roll pin, which is supposed to stop it automatically there, which it doesn't. But I'm going to take the roll pin out. I'm going to drill a new hole slightly farther down so that instead of it stopping at that location, we're up here about 1 kerf width higher. That way, when I cut my last board on the quarter scale mark, I end up with the same thickness board as all of the other boards in the series. So Wood-Mizer, if you're watching this, pay attention and see what you can do to get it fixed. So there we go. There might be more to this video, but at this point, that's all I have to say on that. All right, when I said that there might be some additional video stuff, I was right. What I'd like to do, since I only have my mill and my scales to work with, I'd like to get some feedback from you guys out there that have sawmills of your own, whether they're Wood-Mizer brand or other brands, to see if you have the same issue on your last board. Again, I'd be very interested in it. And hopefully the issue that I've talked about is a Wood-Mizer only issue, and that your other brands have already done it properly and you don't have that issue. But anyway, please in the comments below, if you don't mind, write down the model and brand of mill you've got and what you end up with on your last board thickness, whether it's the same as the others, thicker, thinner, what. Anyway, thank you very much. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.